Hi everyone, it's Kelsey. Just giving a quick disclaimer. My introduction got a little bit cut off at the beginning, so I'm sorry for that, but I still hope that you learned something from this video, and hopefully you get introduced to thinking of design in a different way. Planning 101, Foundations of Drafting. I'm Kelsey, and today I'm going to be running you through the basic elements of drawing drafted plans, as well as introduce you to thinking of design as a way for problem solving. So knowing how to draft plans is really important in being able to see the problems in spaces and apply design changes as a solution. Drawing plans will help you not only visualize these changes within a space, but also visualize any potential spaces that you're working with or spaces that you want to build. So this includes the layout of a space, how the space will be broken down into other spaces or rooms, things like that. Knowing how to draw in scale and draw plans in scale accurately is really important. Doing it by hand is a good foundation to have before you move on to software and drawing plans digitally, because all of the same basics of drawing plans by hand apply to using software as well. So here are some elements that are typically seen in floor plans. A compass is needed so that whoever you're showing your plans to knows how the building is oriented within the larger space and in relation to north, east, south, and west. This is really important because you can use the orientation of the building to maximize natural light and heat, or you need to know wind patterns, or maybe there's a busy street on the northeastern corner of your building or near the northeastern corner of your building, and you need to figure out a way to minimize the noise that comes from the street into your building. So scale, drawing in scale allows us to accurately represent sites, spaces, and buildings, as well as their details, on a smaller or more practical size than the original. So obviously having a 400 square foot apartment on thousands of sheets of paper is a lot less practical than having it drawn on a tabloid sized piece of paper, or maybe even like an 8.5 by 11 inch piece of paper. So as the numbers in the scale get bigger, the second number here that's shown on these scale bars, the elements in the drawing get smaller, and that's because the larger the number is, the more is represented by one unit in your drawing. So for example, this one unit here, I don't know if you can see my mouse, hopefully you can. Let's say it's a centimeter. This 1 centimeter here represents 500 centimeters in real life. So obviously 500 centimeters squished into 1 little centimeter is a lot smaller than 20 centimeters would be squished into 1 centimeter on a page. As well, having a scale bar is really important, so that people know what the scale you're using is for your drawing, and they can more easily visualize how a space might look in real life. As well, scales are used for different scales are used for different kinds of plans. So a more full-size plan of a house perhaps would be done in a scale of 1 to 500, but a basic floor plan might be done in just a scale of 1 to 20. So again, it just depends on the kind of drawing you're doing and what elements you need to include. Dimensions are really important in knowing the basic length, width, height, depth, or area of any object in your plans. It's important to establish the size of a certain object so that it's easier to know how it'll fit within a space. Here we have a breakdown of a 20-foot long wall into 2 spaces that are respectively 10 feet and 6 inches and 9 feet and 6 inches. So lines are really important. Obviously, you're going to be using a lot of lines when you're drawing plans, and the way that you draw a line visually represents a lot of information about the space that you're drawing or creating. So line weights are really important. So that's how thick a line is. The thicker the line, the more important or solid an element would be. So perimeter walls, like outside walls, would be more thick than an interior wall or a door. Doors, furnishings, cabinets, and interior walls will be drawn a little bit thinner than your exterior walls, and then any action lines or information lines and patterns, like hardwood flooring, will be drawn with super light, thin lines, because they're not as important. As well, the kinds of lines that you use can convey certain information, so a solid line indicates a visible solid object, or it can also be used for dimension lines and flow lines as well. Hidden objects or edges of things can be drawn with short dashed lines. And the way that you use these lines is, again, more up to you, but these are just the basic typical uses of lines in a plan. So labels, symbols, and a guide to symbols. It's really important to label your rooms or the things that you include in a drafted plan if you're using a lot of symbols, such as showing furnishings or electrical elements, architectural elements like columns or maybe a hole in the floor. It's really important for whoever you're showing your plans to be able to understand what that is. And so having a guide such as this one here on the screen, a guide to what each thing means will help them better understand what is represented on the page. A title block is also important. It's your work. You want to be able to have your name on it. And as well, it helps whoever's reading the plans know what exactly it is that they're looking at. So here we have an example of a title block for our club. You'll typically include your firm's name or your name as well with whatever logo you use, or if you even use a logo, you can include it. The title of your project, if it's relevant, the project number, who it's drawn by, and you can also include the scale of your drawing here as well, but it's not necessarily important if you have a scale bar already. And then lastly, you can also include colors and textures. This is just an extra little fun detail if you want to include those, especially if you're working with interior design or if you're working with certain materials and you want to represent that. You can use color or texture to show that on your page. So useful tools. Rulers are obviously very useful if you're drafting plans, but even if you're building models, rulers will be really helpful for you. So metal rulers, plastic rulers. A scaled ruler is a triangular ruler that has measurements relating to each scale on each of its sides. So that'll help if you're not particularly very good at math and don't know how to draw and scale. That's pretty helpful. And then a T-square is just a long, very large ruler that kind of fits to a straight edge, so like a desk or even a table, and it'll help you draw bigger lines across a page, but make sure that they're precise and straight as well. A compass, or you can also use an arced ruler for drawing any circular lines or circular elements in your plans. A compass is the mathematical tool where you put a pencil in one side and the other side kind of is stuck within the middle, and you can draw circles really easily. Any pencils, pens, and liner markers would be helpful as well. Pencils obviously for drawing sketches or initial designs, pens and liner markers for your final drafts. You can also use colored markers, again, if you want to include any textural or colored elements to your plans. Again, just extra, but still fun. Erasers for if you make any mistakes, and then paper. Typically, plans are drawn on tabloid paper, so 11 by 17 inches, but you can also just use plain white printer paper, or if you even want to take it up a notch, you can use tracing paper, which is a thinner paper that allows you to trace whatever is underneath it onto that paper, and then you can draw or add extra elements or even change parts of your design on that tracing paper without touching your original. So typical problems that are seen within spaces are poor use of space. If you have a smaller space and it's not being used as well as it could be, or if it's feeling too cramped, bad flow, or if it's uncomfortable to move through a space. Say a whole bunch of desks are placed really randomly throughout a classroom and it's really uncomfortable to walk through them. That would be a good example. Poor sight lines. So this means if you stand in one part of a room or a space, what you can see, what you should see, and what you shouldn't see. So for example, if you enter someone's home and right away you can see into maybe their guest bathroom, that's not necessarily the best thing. You don't want to see someone's bathroom right away. Or, again, with the bathroom, if you have your bathroom door right in front of your bedroom door across the hall, you don't necessarily want to see that first thing in the morning. Things like that. And not taking orientation into consideration. Like I said earlier, if there's a busy street nearby and you build a whole bunch of windows near that street, that's not necessarily the best thing. Or if you don't, you take advantage of natural light or heat that comes over or through your building as well. So this is an example of a design problem. This person posted a floor plan of their main floor and was talking about how they felt as though their main floor could be a little bit more open. As you can see, there's a lot of entryways and doorways in this main space. So one from outside into the garage, into the family room, one from outside into this hallway, into the bathroom. From the main front door, you have a few different options for where to go. Even from this small little cramped kitchen and breakfast area, it's a little bit kind of clunky in terms of a flow. It's not as clear which direction you should go in or can go in, and it feels a little bit chaotic. So one of their suggested solutions was closing this space off and turning this dining room into an office, and then having the foyer and everything else kind of in the same place, but removing that powder room so that this is a little bit more open and bigger of a space. Oops. And then they got rid of that other door leading into the garage and kept the door leading into the family room. So from here, you can see that it does feel a little bit more open and it's a little bit more smooth in terms of the way that you can move through the space, especially from this front door. You can go straight into the office, you can go straight into this bigger space here, what used to be the kitchen, or you can go through this living space or up the stairs. But then once you're moving through the space, it's very clear that it's leading you towards the family room. The family room is almost like an end point for the main floor, and that's really, really pleasing in terms of moving through a space. It feels much more smooth, much more clear, and it does have more of an open concept feel to it. So I hope you learned something from this foundations video. Again, because it's foundations, I only wanted to introduce the basics, but you're free to search up videos on your own time and learn more about drafting plans and different elements that you can include. If you're interested in using software, SketchUp, AutoCAD, and SmartDraw are some really good, useful software programs for drafting plans as well as drafting 3D elements. They're all free for students or cheaper for students as well, and really, really helpful to use. We will be posting practice design prompts in our Instagram bio for you to use to practice design as a problem-solving skill, but also draw plans. You don't necessarily need to use them, and we're not going to be critiquing them, but if you do end up using them, we'd love to see your work, and we'd love it if you could share with us in our Discord so that we can discuss them more. So thank you so much, and have some fun!